Well, Bob, that watchdog is the American Center for Law and Justice. It filed an expedited freedom of information request, demanding all records related to the classified documents President Biden has been hiding for years now. And ACLJ wants all records and communications between the National Archives and the Biden team regarding the documents. A few questions they want answered include: did the National Archives know Biden had classified documents? And if so, for how long? Did anyone else know? Did Biden tell the National Archives that he had given them all of his records? And what is in these documents and who has seen them? Now, the ACLJ also notes that the documents that were taken from the Biden office and his home were related to Ukraine and Iran. Ukraine was the subject of Donald Trump's first impeachment, and Biden has long tried to renegotiate a new nuclear deal with Iran. ACLJ says, quote, "This FOIA request does not seek the actual records discovered, but instead all communications between the National Archives and Biden or his team regarding the disposition of presidential records from his term as vice president, whether classified or unclassified, and some ancillary records." Now, they also want to know why Attorney General Merrick Garland waited to appoint a special counsel until 2 months after the midterms and when the documents became public knowledge. According to published reports, DOJ officials say they used a hands-off approach to leave the special counsel's probe uncompromised because they saw Biden's team as, quote, cooperative. Now, reports also reveal that Biden's attorney, Patrick Moore, was the individual who discovered the classified documents while packing up Biden's former think tank office here in D.C. ACLJ Executive Director Jordan Sekulow says his organization is ready, willing, and able to take this to federal court if the government does not comply with the FOIA request. Katrina, back to you.
Logan, thanks so much. Joining us now to continue the conversation, former Chief of Staff for the National Security Council and former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, your thoughts on what Logan shared with us.
Well, Katrina, we're getting to the point where a lot of Americans are wondering what's going on here. They were told that documents were accidentally, inadvertently sent to Biden's home office or to his think tank office. But these things have shown up on multiple days. If this was a mistake, let's say an envelope full of classified documents was accidentally sent that ended up in Biden's think tank office, how did they end up in Biden's garage? How did they end up in his office? The multiple findings here makes it hard to believe that this was a mistake. And it makes us wonder where these documents were before they ended up where they were found, because we know that the Biden think tank didn't exist when Biden left office. Where were those documents in the meantime? Who moved them around?
Yeah, those are great questions. And give us your background on top secret coverage and your knowledge of that, because it is quite extensive. And if you could address how, like in a day, how often would a vice president be exposed to classified information, and how closely followed or tracked is that?
Well, top secret information would do significant damage to U.S. national security, usually by damaging sensitive sources and methods. I know this from my time as a CIA officer and also as Chief of Staff of the National Security Council. And when I was at the National Security Council, we worked with the National Archive to protect government records. And I might add, just removing your work documents, even if they're not classified, that's also a violation of the law. But as to your question as to how often Biden had access to classified information, all the time. His office was probably full of it. And I have to say, a lot of that information probably was not recorded. I mean, in theory, every piece of paper in there that's classified is tracked, but for all practical purposes, there's so much of it, a lot of it may not have been tracked.
Fred, according to a new report from the Wall Street Journal, the Justice Department considered but then rejected playing a role in the Biden document search. They say they wanted to avoid any so-called complications, and because the president's attorneys were cooperating and turning things over, it was just fine. Is it typical that the DOJ would just say, oh, we totally trust someone's lawyers in good faith, whether it's a president or not?
Well, obviously, this is a real double standard for what was done with President Trump. But let's think this through. If the classified documents are found in an undisclosed location, a neutral government party, the FBI, should have went to investigate it, people who had security clearances. By letting Biden use his own lawyers, they were able to handpick through the information, turn over what they thought was appropriate, and maybe what they did what Hillary Clinton did with her homegrown server. They may have destroyed information that was simply too damaging that they didn't want the public to know about. But there's another angle here. If the FBI had raided Biden's home, they would have seized everything, including possible records related to other matters, maybe matters involving Hunter Biden. And I think that's something that Mr. Biden wanted to avoid.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep asking questions, hopefully find out more and more. All these things you bring up, Fred, are great points. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge, your perspective. Thank you so much.
Good to be here.